Good morning, my name is Kirsty Dignam and I'm here to look at this week's energies for today's Monday's Musings. Now we are a day ahead of the 6/6 portal, and it felt really important for me just to acknowledge the date, to acknowledge where I am. I've just done a snippet recording to make sure that the camera is working, a 5-second recording, and realised as I looked to the camera I have the most incredible turn in my eye, or what we would once call lazy eye, and it seems to be becoming more profound the older I get. And what I loved about watching it back, other than my own acceptance for what would be seen as a flaw, is the fact that I was looking at the screen but also looking off in another direction and just not knowing where to look or not being aware of the many different paths that I could see just by looking straight ahead. And it really feels like there's something in that, because today's daily guidance, I felt this huge sensation of a deeper awareness of presence, even beyond what we know, and it's coming with the 6/6 portal. And what I really sense is there's no going back. There is no going back. That actually, for those that are prepared to now walk through the changes that are being asked of us, it's going to be, I can hear the song, A Whole New World. And I really feel a lot of pressure almost trying to come in to the crown chakra here. I can feel a few insights into other areas where people may feel as if it needs to be cleared, but it is one thing to clear the lower energy centres, but if we haven't cleared the higher energy centres, then only so much can come through. So it feels like there's a great concentration needed with our connection to our own source this week, and that is going to be different for everybody. And this morning I really felt like I had no opinion on anything. Like I had no view on anything. I just felt totally not disconnected from everything. I was very aware of everything, more aware actually than I've ever been. But I felt like and it wasn't even a numbness, it wasn't even observation, it was beyond observation. Yeah, it was a presence in what was occurring beyond my own story, beyond the stories that were being reflected, beyond any opinions, values, judgments, or anything of it. And it was, gosh, a very interesting place to be. I like to think that I'm pretty good at observing, and I'm pretty good at witnessing and reflecting things back that are often unseen, because it's always been part of my job. It's always been part of my role here, in particular when it comes to the beauty that we don't always acknowledge. And that makes it sound like a wonderful job, and it is now, but it hasn't always been. In order to see things that others may not see, I also had to see that in myself. I had to walk through every opinion and every judgment, and I'm continuing to do that, like us all. But it's almost like every step that has been taken has led me to this place of realizing that even my ability to witness and observe is being taken on another level. And this morning that felt terrifying, but also glorious, like so ready to take things to the next step now. And I really sense that for the 6/6 portal. But I also sense that the walking through it, or walking through the next dimension, the next potential, is literally by walking through ourselves. Now we know this anyway. It doesn't matter if it's 6/6, 5/5, solstice. We are, an embodiment of potential, an embodiment of portals. But this one, I can always see the snake eating its own tail by realizing that we are and always have been the portal. So the 6/6 is also linked to the Lover's card as well, which is recognizing that Eden has always been within us. So, yes, I'm not having many opinions on anything, but that actually tallies in with the world that I would like to be part of. And this week we're going to be really shown that. We're going to be really shown what we're doing and how that resonates with what it is we're trying to create. And the only way to really examine that is to be present in where we are. Going back to the camera, going back to the turn in the eye, whenever we're actually looking at what is in front of us, you'd be very surprised at the different directions and paths that open up as a result. And we may not be able to see them, or we may not even be aware that we're looking at them or looking for them, because we're present. But recognizing the more present we are, the more we are opening up that potential, not only to our future, not only to things that we may want to achieve, but more importantly to ourselves. And that's going to be really key. So obviously, knee-jerk reaction this morning. I have no opinion on anything, no view on anything. I'm not thinking anything about anything, feeling anything about anything. And it's like, but I'm supposed to be doing a weekly video into the energies. Oh my God, I have to have something to talk about, I have to have something to think about. And that really is going to come to light this week, how often we find ourselves having a narrative, an opinion, a view, a judgment, just to fit in, just to do what it is we think we're here to do, just for gossip, basically. And that, really looking at that this week, that no matter what intention is on it, whether it's spiritual, whether it's guidance, whether it's wanting what's best for somebody, you know, all of these opinions, they're gossip. They're gossip, and acknowledging that. Because if we can get into the space where we have no view on anything, that's when the true, I'm going to say it, the truth actually can come through, when it isn't manipulated or, manipulated by power, by the position that we find ourselves in. So an example, I was talking to my husband yesterday about how we all use our place of power to manipulate the story, and acknowledging that. You know, there's a lot going on in the collective about, for example, people like Philip Schofield, and, you know, how what is coming to light here, I see personally as someone that has taken their position and been able to use it to get what they want. And that is what we all do, one level or another. And the sooner we can acknowledge that reflection in our own psyche, the easier these shifts and transitions are going to be. So an example, I can read the cards and I could, you know, manipulate it, navigate it to fit the narrative that I want to get across. That's my view, that's my opinion. So this morning, in reality, the fact that I've woken up with no real view on what is occurring outside of me, but a deep awareness of what is occurring within me, has been able to give me the ability to just look at the energies this week and say what is being asked of me, not the other way around, which is going to be key. We have the full moon in Sagittarius that has just occurred, and yes, of course, that is about what we want to try and achieve. But if we can recognise what we want to try and achieve is actually being asked of us as well, we have that unlimited force behind us. But to do that, we must let go of expectations. We must let go of how we believe things are meant to be, ourselves included. I just finished the most glorious weekend of shadow work, and oh wow, it was absolutely beautiful, stepping into these parts of ourselves that we don't want to acknowledge, or that we're shameful of or feel guilty about, in a light-hearted way, and really seeing the benefits, the treasures that can come forth on that soul retrieval, that shadow retrieval level. So one example, I did actually step into the person that didn't, or appeared not to care, that had no opinions, that had no views on anything, the witness. And yes, of course, it came from a place of pain, and it came from a place of trauma, and hiding it had come from a place of shame and guilt and not fitting in. But the underlying energy in that was the ability to actually just watch and just listen without preconceived narratives in my mind, because I wasn't attached to the outcome. So with that in mind, I think that's all that is really got really itching my back, real scratch on my back, and I do sense the I'll scratch your back, you scratch my back. Being very aware of that, being very aware of how we share our narratives in order to help others believe in their narrative, and vice versa. And even that, I can feel a lot of confusion there. So how do we know what our story is if we're so busy being embodied in that of others? That is going to be key this week. Step back, this included. You know, this will either resonate with you or it won't. And hopefully it won't, because you will step back and you will find your own story, your own narrative, your own views. Because the thing I have been very aware of today, I have no opinions on other people's opinions, but I do have some on my own. There's a lot of things I want to fine tune. There's a lot of things I've outgrown. There's a lot of views of myself in particular that I no longer need to carry forward. You know, if we make ourselves less busy with what's going on out there, we can start to really look at what's going on in here. Okay, and again, That's just a view. Take it, leave it. Hopefully don't take it and find your own. But whatever this week brings, the ability to walk through the energy that's available, particularly tomorrow in the 6-6 portal, is all reflected on the ability to walk through our own emotions, to experience our own authenticity, and it's going to be mirrored in that. Okay, so with that in mind, not bad for someone without an opinion. Let's have a look at the energies this week. There is a difference between having an opinion and being aware of what's going on, and that feels like key to really recognise that. Now I did get the get the out. You know, when we do get caught up in the energy of others, we do end up, the less authentic we are, the more we become like holy cheese. Okay, so we get rid of that aspect of our soul out of shame or guilt, and we get rid of that, and we get rid of that, and we end up with caverns of creative potential, which if we're not in our own energy, we are leaving open and vast to the views, the opinions, the creations of others, the energies of others. So get the out. Get the out. Literally take time to be with yourself and to start filling these holes, these voids within you from yourself. Okay, so I may go back to the Radiant Rider-Waite Tarot, I may not, and there's something there actually that I can really feel about Pamela Coleman-Smith, who illustrated the tarot, didn't know about the tarot but just illustrated them, and there's a lot of power that comes from having no understanding of what's going on, or opinion of what's going on, or perceived knowledge of what's going on, because if we can let go of what everyone else says, we can actually create from a place that is untarnished, untainted. Pamela had no real understanding of the tarot, but she illustrated them by connecting to the energy on a purer form without the stories and expectations of others, just with some guidelines. So any advice this week, take it as a guideline. You know, it's not set in stone. Take it as a guideline to help you find your own wisdom. And that is, for me anyway, the tarot. Okay, so with that in mind, what I'm actually going to work with is the animal totem, because it feels very important to recognize the difference between being aware and to honor where that awareness is coming from. So we could be aware from a place of not feeling safe. We could be aware from a place of relatability, especially when it comes to gossip. Okay, why does this keep coming up? Let me look at my own stuff here. We could also be aware from a place of survival, needing to fit in, all the animal instincts, emotions. Okay, really recognizing that we can be very aware from an emotional place, making sure any information that comes through this week, any guidance that comes through this week, works for us on all levels. The other thing that came through this morning was about working with the medicine wheel, so really looking at where our mind is at, our air, really looking at where our spiritual body is at, where our drive, our creative passion, our ambition is at, our fire, really looking at our emotions and any healing that may need to be done in regards to just holding space for them, obviously our water body, our emotional body, and really looking at physical steps and where we're at physically as well. So it's really simple this week. If you say something or do something or find yourself involved in an energy and all of a sudden you feel icky, get out, get the out. Okay, really going back to honing those animal senses here as much as we can. Obviously, I'm aware life happens and it isn't always as easy as just, you know, walking away from a situation, but being aware of what our body's trying to tell us this week is going to be key if we're going to have any wisdom about any portals that we may potentially walk through, or any anything. Basically, it's like anything, you know, we can be aware of everything that's going on around us, but if we're not aware of what we're feeling, if we're not aware of what's going on in our body, then we're not actually aware of the true tool that's being used. So you can use tarot, you can use healing, you can use angelic guidance, the moon key, whatever it is you choose to use, but this is the vessel. So before you share or have an opinion on anything, it's that age-old feeling, saying, does it feel good? Where is it coming from? Is it necessary? Really fine-tuning that this week with ourselves as well. I think today is National Environment Day, and there's something in that about being aware of the very world, the very Eden that we are creating in the decisions that we make based on the reflections that are being shown to us and those that we project perhaps onto others. So the Leica people will suggest that projection and reflection is a lower way of dreaming. So if something is being shown to you this week that isn't particularly comfortable, use that. Use that as an opportunity to dream higher. Okay, use that as an opportunity to feel what is occurring and get what you need as a result. You cannot do that if you don't feel it. So the human body, absolutely incredible with pain relief, serotonin, dopamine, all of it. It will give you everything that you need, but you have to feel what you need in the first place, and that really feels like key this week. Anyway. I'm looking at I was just thinking, right, I need to take my own views now back out of it and just let it come through. And as I did, I was looking at my accounts and the word cash and ages. So I do know that that is mine. However, if that does resonate with you, fine. You know, there are a lot of things that are coming to light this week to be refined, to be trawled over, to be sorted out, to get our books and affairs in order. You have the Four of Swords at the bottom of the pack, and obviously it is kind of like the last thing many of us want to actually do because the sun's shining. You know, part of me did not want to do this video. I just wanted to sit outside. And there needs to be balance there. There needs to be balance. I'd had the most glorious morning of being present and in the moment. And there needs to be balance there, recognising we can be present regardless what it is we do. We can still be present in our actions. And there is another level of that coming this week. So a bit of compassion while we adapt to that. We have the devil at the bottom of the pack. Okay, so I love this. I think this is a cougar by the looks of it, or a lynx. Either way, it's almost like a wild, caged animal here. But actually the animal isn't caged. It's miles away from the traps, and it's feeding off of the freedom of the rabbit in front of it. It's actually attacked the rabbit in front of it, and it's white and it's pure. You know, a lot of us can feel as if there's no way out, as if we've tried everything and, you know, we're trapped. There's nothing that we can do. And the reality is there's always something that we can do. There is always a choice, even if it's right down to how we see a situation. There is always a choice here. Really looking at what narrative is feeding us this week is going to be key. And we can't do that if we're too involved in everyone else's opinions. We can't do that if we're going to continually pinpoint externally what is going on. So what is going on for you this week? It's time to start releasing yourself. And in order to do that, it's by recognising what is actually holding you back. Okay. See the most beautiful sunflower in front of my eyes. Right, energy this week. And I'm going to step out the equation completely, which feels like key. Just stepping out. Just stepping out. And what I hear is stepping out of what's going on, but also having the courage to step out. To step out and step up this week. Be aware of the conflict in our own communication, the discrepancies, the authenticity of what it is we are saying. Okay, energies this week. So we have the Ace of Pentacles at the bottom. I really felt that. I really felt a new beginning. But what I saw when I went off then a little bit was seeing how some of the opinions I'd had on myself had almost been reflected back this week. But no judgment there. Whatever comes up this week, it is all an opportunity to start again. It is all an opportunity to make some real physical solid changes, and actually to include ourselves in the physical energy. So one of the things I saw today was a video of someone that was channeling, and I did actually say, can they be channeling that well? Because there's a lot of their own opinion in there. There's a lot of pausing, stopping, you know, laughing. And, you know, for me, channeling has always been from an external source. But actually what I'm really seeing this week is to acknowledge our role in that, our role in being part of the spiritual team as well, and to acknowledge the physical importance of that this week. We have the Ace of Pentacles at the bottom of the pack. The overall energy here is the ability to carry on literally pushing that dung uphill. I see that go up the screen then. Literally pushing that physical dung to where it needs to be. Literally fertilizing. We have Temperance underneath. Fertilizing what needs to be done. Chop wood, carry water. You know, the other really important thing, and even though I joke and laugh, I feel that compassionately with the guidance that's coming through. If we could just bring back some of our energy that we've been sending out with different views and opinions, and instead of facing what is being felt within us, if we can do that, the whole chop wood, carry water will be a lot more efficient. Today I found myself behind because or what I believed was behind, because I'd lived life. I'd taken time to eat my breakfast, walk my dog, be present. And actually what happened is I went into a very familiar, slow, but more efficient energy. And that's really key. And all I did was be present. All I did was be present. So this week, if you find the mind racing off, or the emotions all over the place, or getting involved in the stories of others, or you find yourself just drained this week, bring it back. Why have we, you, us, whatever, allowed that energy to be scattered? Bring it back. Constantly bring it back. What, for some, are we trying to avoid? Bring it back. Because the shit goes nowhere. Yeah, it's fertilizer. It's needed for the seeds that we plant, you know, and the sooner we recognise that, the easier it's going to be, especially with the chop wood, carry water, especially with the more mundane things this week. If we can realise that the more mundane is what actually fertilises the growth of the miracles, you know, if we can make things super but natural all in one go, then that's going to really make a difference. Okay, yes, I do want to shuffle the cards again. I want to shuffle the cards again because the moment we acknowledge it's the mundane that brings the magic, everything changes. That is the new physical beginning. Okay. Yeah, you have the Six of Pentacles right at the bottom of the pack. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Overall, whoa. Okay, so we have the Six of Pentacles right at the bottom of the pack, and I always wanted to avoid that energy, which is really unusual for me because it's all about balance and it's all about giving and receiving here on a physical level, and what we would call Aini. So it's kind of like at the ethos of everything that I do, yet I wanted to avoid it. Really looking underneath, you know, the distractions, where they're distracting us to and what they're actually taking us away from, and how that's affecting our own authentic ethics here. Okay, so I'm very aware if I gossip, it feels terrible. It really feels terrible. And yet I still do it. I'm human like the rest of us. I still do it. Or I'm very aware if I give away too much and don't look after myself, I feel drained, yet I still do it. So this week it really feels like a beautiful opportunity to stop doing the things we know are taking us away from our very core value here. Because what I see here is the chickens, and all I can see is the fact that they're caged. All I can see here is the fact that they're caged, even though she's moving along that little pentacle and she has all those behind her, all that potential to deliver even more behind her. It's kind of like that Ace of Pentacles, that new beginning in front, that wealth of wisdom behind, and yet all I can see is the cage. Recognizing this week that everything that we have been through needs to be fine-tuned, to be sieved down, so that we take that one ethical core forward. Otherwise, we're always going to feel as if we're a victim of our external environment, and we're not. Ooh, okay. I feel real ache in my shoulder over that, real like, oh, ache in my shoulder. On the Monday, today, we have the Queen of Wands. There's the sunflowers. There's the lioness. There's the crown, almost on a maypole here. But what I really notice in this card is that the Queen of Wands is looking a little slim. She's looking a little deflated, a little less passionate than she would be normally. And you can see those clouds in the background starting to brew. as a result. Okay, but it's almost like the clouds, the wind, the thoughts about it all is what is actually making the crown be more noticeable. Okay, so it's almost as if the lack, the scarcity, the frustration, the longing for something more on a mental level has almost been what is going to wake us up on the Monday. What is going to wake us up out of this situation? You know, it is time for the Queen of Wands here to start feeding. It is time for her to sustain herself now. And when I say her, obviously I mean the creative forces of the feminine. I mean the shadow. I mean the depths we are willing to go to on the Monday in particular to get what it is we need. And you know, with that will come uncertainty, with that will come doubt, with that will come the undoing of mentally where we believe we are, you know, and really just observing that today is going to be key. Always recognizing that it is about our freedom and it is about our ability to get what it is we need. Okay, everything that comes up, oh, I can't do this because da 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 da. Okay, this is trying to distract me from what I need. Doesn't mean get rid of it, doesn't mean avoid it or fix it. Experience it. Yeah, the queen of the jungle here. Experience it without the fear. This is your mind, your thoughts, your values, your opinions. Feel them. Less of this, more of this for the Monday with the Queen of Wands. Because then on the Tuesday we have the King of Pentacles, and it's almost like he's took her crown. You can see her crown. He's took her crown and he's now wearing it. Okay, I think that's the buffalo. Yeah, the buffalo here, and taken the pentacle from the chicken and has actually stood upon it. Sovereignty. I was thinking, well, okay, what one word? And on the Tuesday it really feels like cutting through it all. What one word, what one thing, what one value do they all have in common? You know, a lot of the times when we're trying to figure things out, what we do, like the sunflowers on the Queen of Wands, is we get loads of different seeds and we can plant this and we can, you know, really look at this potential and we can start to put this into place. But what do they all have in common? What is it we are trying to achieve here? And on the Tuesday, it feels important to really cut through that with authenticity or sovereignty. Are they all in alignment? And I can really feel that under my clavicle here, almost like a need to stretch, to look further, to really open our hearts, lift up our head and look further than where we have been looking than just in front of us. Are they in alignment with the higher vision of the world that we are trying to create? Are we in alignment? How grounded are we in what it is we are trying to create and our own sovereignty? And obviously that may not be as grounded as we would like, because on the Wednesday we have the first major arcana. However, it's important to note that underneath all the energy this week we're being supported by the wild card. So again, going back to recognizing that it's all about freeing our potential. It's all about discovering who we are in this world every day, every moment, every week. You know, it's all about finding and discovering ourselves. Each and everything is an opportunity to see things, ourselves included, in a different way and look at the world that we create as a result to the response of this. On the Wednesday, that may not always be the truth that we want to hear, right? Because we have judgment here. And it's like, I see it, the presence. I mean, we have all the deers here, but all I can see is the presence in the cart. What's going to move us forward? Whatever we've been waiting for. The presence here. Okay? It's that that's calling us out. There's no winged saviour. There's no archangel calling on the trombone. There's no rising up, because there's no one to drive the cart. The only thing that you can see is presence, and it's that that's actually going to move us forward. We do have a beautiful cross on the flag. And that just reminds me of the centre of the medicine wheel, but it also reminds me of the Southern Cross. It reminds me of the masculine, the feminine, the red road, the yellow road. Balance, okay? Balance and presence is what's going to take us forward on the Wednesday. We are going to have judgments. We are going to have opinions, not just on the Wednesday, but throughout our life. But how do they affect our ability to stand in who we are? You know, we all do it. I've been, oh, this happened and oh, that happened and oh, you never guess what. And by the end of it, I feel really ungrounded because I've taken myself out of my energy and become too busy in that of other people's. Now, that is life, okay, whether it's channeling, whether it's reading the tarot, whatever. But what we're being asked of this week is to have a real deeper sense of embodiment in our own energy as we do these things, to recognize how valuable that is for us all to move forward individually and collectively. And once we do that on the Thursday, we have the Eight of Wands. Now, don't even get me started on the horse. Yeah, the horse has the most incredible open heart, the most beautiful mind, the ability to be free and solid and grounded, wild and with the wind, all 4 feet on the ground. Just incredible energy. If we can do that, if we can open our hearts, open our minds, remain grounded in the changes that are occurring, yet free in who we are, and empower others to do the same, then the energy is going to really shift quite quickly on the Thursday. I need to pause. On the Friday we have our second major arcana, and it's the moon, and there is a real need to pause on the Friday to see who we are as a result, to see and I really feel that. I feel a monumental shift coming through after the portal, a monumental change coming through on the Friday, where we see who we are. We see the illusion that we may have had, be it from others or ourselves, regarding that. And it doesn't, well, for me, it doesn't feel as if it's oh my gosh, I thought I could do da-da-da and I can't. It feels the other way. But again, that is for me, it may be different it will always be different for us all. But what I really see here, again, I cannot reflect this back enough, and that feels like key. If you're going to reflect anything back, do it from a place of knowing who you are in this world, not getting caught up in the illusion, knowing that changes, that we all have cycles of, expressing and being hidden and seen and unseen, and empowering other people to feel the same way. Because what I love about these cards here, the moon is reflecting, but it almost looks like it's reflecting the world. Let our emotions this week reflect who we are. Let our emotions help us to see through the illusion. I get frustrated with myself, of course I do, when I end up doing something that I've done before and I think, wow, you haven't learnt that one, have you? I can't believe you're doing that again. And call yourself out. Call yourself out with some humour. Call yourself out if you're gossiping. Call yourself out if you're fitting the narrative to your story because it's easier, or, you're too nervous to do something in particular, or you aren't ready, or just call yourself out for the reflection that's being shown there, because until we do that, we're never going to reach our full potential. Embrace what is being shown. Embrace the emotions that you feel as a result. Really feel into them and let them guide you towards who you are. On the Saturday, we have the Knight of Pentacles. Once we do that, we are a lot more grounded. Okay, so we've taken, again, that pentacle seems to be traveling through the I want to say the lineage, but it does seem to be traveling along. We've gone from chicken to buffalo to, I do believe that's an otter. I think that's an otter. And all I'm being drawn to see is the shield behind him. You can't even see his face. Look at that. All I can see is the shield, the arms, and just slightly the pentacles. So there we are. Bring it into focus. Bring into focus where we still feel we need to defend ourselves. Bring it into focus where our arms may be closed down and not open. Bring into focus the impact that has on our ability to ground by the weekend, because come the Sunday, there are things that we want to achieve that we might not quite be able to reach, that we might need help. Okay, but if we don't look at our own defense mechanisms, and it is a defense mechanism, if we don't look at our own defense mechanisms here, the ones that have kept us almost trapped from judgment on ourselves that we have then reflected onto others, the only help we're going to get is literally going to be mirroring that back, just how out of reach everything is. Okay, so let's break this down. Major arcanas. Oh, there. I couldn't find judgment. I couldn't find judgment, which is just beautiful, because again, this morning, just literally having no real It was so refreshing, and I kept trying to search, and do I not feel anything about this? Is there nothing there for me? And when there isn't anything there for you, don't make something fit. Don't make there be something if there isn't, because it isn't relevant to you. And it's okay if you're on the path, like we all are, of discovering who we are in this world and what it is we are here to do. Let go of the judgment of thinking we need to be the same as others. Let go of the judgment of thinking we need to feel things when we don't, or have an opinion when we haven't. Really bring it back to the self here, because there are those that will be doing certain things with certain energies and those that will be doing things with certain energies, and this is what we're all being asked of. So stay in your lane. Stay in your lane this week. Really, really stay in your lane. And I was going to say that have no judgment if you can't, but actually that's not even, if you're in your own lane, it makes sense anyway. If you're in your own lane, you won't have judgments on the things that you don't need to have judgments on. If you're in your own lane, you won't have things reflected back that you don't need to see. If you're in your own lane, you're in your own lane. If you're in your own energy, you have no choice but to take responsibility for your own energy. And it is that a lot of us, myself included, often avoid, and it is that comes with judgment, and it is that projects judgment, and it is that causes this illusion of who we actually are in this world. It's time. The universe has some beautiful creative, number 3, some beautiful creative energy coming this week to empower us to see who we are, the judgments in place that have caused the illusion beyond that, and the chance to change the cycle. And of course it's our emotions that are going to call us out this week, which is why we're working with the animal deck. Okay, so why are we working with the animal deck? Animal energy is unconditional, absolutely unconditional, and we call it simple, but very pure, very authentic, very basic needs, very based upon elements. So if they feel unsafe, they have reason to feel unsafe, and they go through the cycle of being unsafe. They go through the cycle of trauma, and they work it out. They finish the cycle, and this week that's what's being asked of us, to complete the cycle. So if we're still, that has a judgment with it. If we are acting in a certain way based on how we have been or what has happened, we haven't completed the stress cycle. So this week, finding a way to do that, because it is impacting our ability to hunt for what we now need, because it's still based, and that I will say, still based on where we were, still based on the stress response. Okay, and it's that's guiding us forward this week. It doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be that way. It can be presence that guides us forward. And I don't mean presence as in completely calm and there's no stress, but I mean presence as in awareness. Be aware what is guiding you. Be aware what your driving force is. No one's saying it can't be stress. No one's saying it has to be this, this and this. Have awareness of what's guiding you forward so that you can be prepared for the outcome. If it's stress that's guiding you forward, then ultimately there's a high chance it will be that kind of energy that you get back. Just like if you're willing to gossip, be very aware of what that person gossiping with you is saying about you behind your back, because you're creating this world. You're creating this world. Stress causes stress, pain causes pain, gossip causes gossip. Own lane, be aware of the world that you are creating, because that's the Queen of Wands. That is the energy that is potentially here, and really looking at the sheer fact that it might not be sustaining you anymore, because this Queen of Wands does look rather on the slim side. She does look rather deflated. She does look rather lonely, which could be one of the reasons that we find ourselves in the energy of others, because to be seen, to be heard, to be visible can be, what we feel we need. And it is, but it is about being seen by yourself, heard by yourself, visible to yourself, because from there you will have people that truly see you and reflect that back. And this week we may have drawn to our awareness where this isn't always the case, or where our own vision has increased, where our own growth now needs to be more evident in what we have reflected back to us and how we choose to act, because ultimately what we have reflected back to us is going to be based on how we choose to act, whether it's before or after the situation, and really taking responsibility for that. So wand wise, we have 2 wand cards, which is the Queen of Wands and the 8 of Wands. And obviously when we do that, we do initiate a freedom of spirit, a freedom of soul, a freedom to be raw and real, however that chooses to come through, okay? And for some that will be more controlled, for some that will be more random, and it will be really about acknowledging that the Divine Feminine will choose her way of being created through us as the vessel, okay? And being really open to that this week. The other reason that we get involved in the busyness of others is that we do need, or feel we need, validation from other people. We do feel as if we need to be part of something, and that can almost lead to comparison. Be very aware of that this week. Be very aware of recognising your own beauty in the reflection of those that we may strive to be like. So you may see somebody and think, oh, I really wish I could be like them. What is it you're actually longing for? Because it will be a reflective skill within you. Okay, so I find powerful women, strong women, incredibly inspiring. I always have. Whether it's women giving birth or women weightlifting, or, you know, I find it incredibly inspiring because within me is that longing to be seen. So really, really, really looking at that. And the shadow aspect as well, because I also find over-opinionated individuals quite frustrating, because I can be over opinionated. So, you know, gratitude and you know, really grateful for that being reflected, and acknowledging where I'm not accepting myself unconditionally, where I'm not okay with that, and I've been trying to hide it back and it be reflected back, being really aware of it this week, but in a grounded way. Now for me, to ground that, it's humour. I have to, otherwise I'm obsessive. I will go over and over what I need to heal and fix and and you know, that's not acceptance for me. So for me, to do it in a grounded manner is humour. Okay, so really looking at how, because the only other cards that we have are pentacles. There's no water cards. There's no swords here. So even though it's an emotional week mentally, all we're being asked to do is look at how that helps to ground our spirit, how that helps to, there's a big difference between being grounded and suffocating the spirit, entrapping the spirit and the soul this week. I did the most incredible talk a couple of weeks ago with my elders and shared lots of different tools, and it felt very humbling, and it gave me an opportunity to see where I was at. I didn't for a moment believe I would be able to do that, and it was an honour, a real privilege. And there was one beautiful soul who acknowledged that they needed to ground, that they'd been told that they need to ground, and they found it really deflating and really upsetting, because their view, the perspective that had been placed upon them when it came to grounding, was a real low, sensible, responsible energy. By expressing that grounding is just to be in who you are and the energy that works for you, this individual lit up, just lit up, almost like they've been given permission to be who they are. And this week, that is what's happening. We are being given permission to be who we are by grounding our soul in the vibration of the soul. For some, that will be lower. For others, that will be higher. For yourself, it may vary up and down depending on where you are. It really doesn't matter. What matters is you're present in whatever is occurring this week, because we have 3 pentacle cards here, and they are all grounding cards. Okay, we have the King of Pentacles, the Knight of Pentacles, and the 3 of Pentacles. And what I really see here is, if we are going to ground, to almost go backwards and look at the things that we believe gave us stability and foundations, and really re-examine them. Are they helping us? Are they rebuilding what we need to now achieve? Or have they paid their dues? Have they done what they need to do? You know, I, for example, have been deep my whole life. My whole life. And I'm so grateful, because it's given me great grounding into compassion, emotions, depth, awareness, beauty. But I'm about to give myself, as I go through the 6-6 portal, a wonderful opportunity to lighten things up when it comes to the heavier stuff now, because I've gone down deep enough to put in these fantastic roots. The lower we go into what is occurring, you know, the more embodied we can be physically into what is occurring, the more able we are then to branch out and stretch and transcend, not by escaping what is occurring, but by really having presence in it. So from the 6-6 portal, for me, my grounding, I hope, pray, wish, but try not to have no expectation on, is in a more light-hearted way. This week, find what helps you feel present. You know, sometimes feeling things may not help you feel present because they may be too much, and the body's response is to fight or flight from that. That's not going to help you finish the cycle. No matter how well-meaning insights may be, no matter how well-intended it may be to get you to have healing or get you to sit still or whatever, if that doesn't feel right for you, if that makes you feel more trapped than you felt, it's not going to help ground you. It's going to reinitiate the trauma of feeling unsafe. So this week, whatever helps you feel grounded enough to finish the cycle is going to be key and going to be different for everybody. So with that in mind, I'm going to draw one card from the Radiant Wider Rate. Wider Rate. Okay, yes. A wider rate of radiance coming through, and of course there is. We have the solstice, we have the longest day coming up. Okay, so there is extra light coming in, and it is about being more open to that. But I've just finished another passing on of the Moon Eye Key, and one of the things the wisdom keepers of the Moon Eye Key really pass across, the masculine energy, is that it knows you can only have the wisdom available once you have a really open, ready to receive feminine, you know, which is the day keeper, which is the ability to walk those cycles, which is the depths and darkness of it all. The more open we can be to that, the more light we can receive. And this week, this month, we are going to get a lot more light coming in. So use this as an opportunity to really look at where you're at with your shadow. Where are you at with your shadow? What judgments are there? What views are there? Like Pamela, let's just have no, I want to say implications on what wants to come through for us. Okay, so one card. What wants to come through? It's love, and it's blossoming, and it's pink, and it's beautiful, and it's making my whole stomach churn up because that's not my thing. What wants to come through for us is a high chance it may not be our thing. It may be the very thing that we've been trying to avoid, because it's about looking at why we've been trying to avoid that. Why would I try to avoid pink and fluffy? Because I like strong women, and I don't see that as strong when actually it really is. Love really is. So, okay, looking at what one thing wants to come through for us, what one guidance is there for us this week. Are they all upside down? Oh, they are all upside down. Okay. But that feels like key. So the card that I pulled out was the 10 of Wands, but it was upside down, and the 10 of Cups, which was also upside down, but the whole deck is upside down. And underneath we have the Magician, the 6 of Wands, and the 5 of Pentacles. And there's lots under here. There's the Sword, the Ace of Swords, the 9 of Pentacles, and the Fool card. And what I'm really getting underneath it all is if we can't change our perspective, if we can't flip it on our head, then it's always going to be too much. It's always going to get in the way of what this joy now is, because the joy has changed. What fulfills us has changed. So therefore must our perspective on ourselves and each other. Otherwise we're going to feel as if we're victims of our external environment, when actually this week there's a great opportunity to create the magic of heaven on earth and have the victory that is responsible behind that by taking responsibility. Looking at our connection with our own divinity, looking at how grounded we are truly within our own sovereignty and how that has changed. Because if we don't, we're not going to see how we have changed. And if we don't, then we are going to continue to create from that level. And there is no judgment there on my part. To be honest, there's no opinion, but I personally am ready to walk through the portal. And if you are, then I shall see you next week. Take care.